and welcome to yet another edition of Rendezvous. Our guest tonight is
Sri Lanka's celebrated filmmaker Sumitra Peries, who has got an amazing karmic twist with France.
She first went to France as a 21-year-old to St Tropez to join her brother Kuru on his yacht.
And a few months later, she met Lester James, her husband-to-be, in Paris.
If there's any country that has recognized, celebrated, felicitated Sumitra and Lester James Peries beyond compare, it is France.
Completing her karmic twist with France, she returned to Paris in 1995 as Her Excellency Sri Lanka's ambassador to France.
Bonjour, Madame Peries. Welcome to Rendezvous.
Bonjour, Yasmin. Bonjour, Kumar.
Could you take us back in time to those days when you, as Sumithra Gunawardena, spent in St Tropez?
In a yacht?
Yes, my brother was on a yacht. I couldn't have afforded. As you know, yachts are only for very rich people. Oh, when I went on the yacht, I had never seen a yacht. I didn't know what a yacht meant. You know, I was this girl from Isabella, and as you know, it's not everybody who is exposed to that kind of culture. And then it was, I mean, sleeping on a little bunk, sometimes being strapped onto a bunk for hours.
Why?
Because the sea was rough and there was no proper facilities. One had to balance and do your daily chores sometimes.
What about seasickness?
Mercifully, I was not seasick. You know?
Oh, you're lucky.
I wasn't a good swimmer. I mean, I could have swum a bit, but I certainly wouldn't have got into a bikini at that time.
Why didn't you?
I wish I had. I had the figure not like then. Now, the best of the Parisian upper class lived there, but also you get the bohemian, the artist.
France's glorious Côte d'Azur was a haven for Impressionist painters Cézanne, Monet and Renoir, who first discovered the region in the 19th century. Captivated by the light and color of this undiscovered landscape, the painters immortalized its shores on canvas. With Henri Matisse and Pablo Picasso resident on the coast, other artists from Jean Cocteau to Henri Lartigue to Sergei Diaghilev were also drawn to the area.
And I lived with my brother with a Frenchman who was a naval architect, and he was an artist, married to an American who came from a very rich family, Mayo Clinic. And we were going from one port to another. And we started in Capri, in Italy, and Ischia, and you know, right round you lift your anchor and your whole home is taken to another country.
But when in St Tropez, I believe that was when you watched Roger Vadim shooting.
And
his,
God created woman
yeah,
with the sultry Brigitte Bardot.
Yes, there was this lot of lights and activity, and I was like a lost soul. I didn't know what the hell it was about. I had never seen a camera in my life. And here I had an idea I wanted to do documentary, but I hadn't actually physically done it. And so when I watched the...
Was it by accident that you saw him shooting this
they
film?
were shooting outside on St Tropez. St Tropez at that time was a sleepy village. Mostly, as you know, most of those little ports are small, but very colorful and very interesting. So I was very curious, because all these lights and lamps and people, and they said that is Brigitte Bardot. To me, Brigitte Bardot was just another girl, pretty, you know, she was not even pretty, she was very perky, had a lot of sensuality in her.
Brigitte Bardot, the famous French film actress, was one of the best-known sex symbols of the 1950s and 60s. The film And God Created Woman by Roger Vadim made her an overnight sensation and launched her international film career to new heights. Bardot also released several records throughout the 60s and 70s and collaborated on an album with Serge Gainsbourg in 1968. she gracefully retired in 1973. Always an animal lover, the former actress turned her attention to animal activism. In 1986, she formed the Brigitte Bardot Foundation, which is an animal welfare organization that rescues animals and lobbies for animal-safe policies. Madame Peries, you are no stranger to the Cannes Film Festival, the mecca of world cinema.
How exhilarating was it to walk the red carpet at Cannes and to be in the midst of it all with the photographers and all that?
Actually, you had a hell of, as young people, the build-up of the Cannes Festival, you expect much more than what you actually see. But the fact of physically being there, I mean, it is a dream of every filmmaker, because otherwise, what is cinema without places like Cannes or maybe the Oscars, to walk that red carpet, to mix with the best of the world, the best, whether it's Hollywood or European or, cinema is alive there. So I think I was privileged to have been there. I was more privileged to be there as Lester's wife when he was
on the jury.
He was on the jury.
And
Gerard Depardieu was this
president of the
huge,
jury.
the actor, tall man. And there was Paul Lester, who's half his size. And when they grabbed, they became good friends. And I must say, France has been a country that has given us a lot of support, and I'm indebted in a kind of way, emotionally, I think, more than anything else, to a country that I love.
That was nice, Mrs. Peries. Thank you so much.
Stay tuned for more with Madame Peries.
Well, here we are after a short break, and now we go to Paris.
And Paris is where you met your husband to be when he was on his way to the Cannes Film Festival with his own film, Rekawa.
A special screening of Rekawa at the Musée Guimet, organized by Dr. Vernon Mendes, our charge d'affaires in Paris at that time. Rekawa, or The Line of Destiny, is the first full-length feature film by Dr. Lester James Peries. A watershed in the then Ceylonese film industry, Rekawa is based on village life and mythical beliefs in Ceylon and was the first ever Sinhala film to be shot entirely outdoors and the first film which was free from the South Indian influence. A commercial failure in Ceylon, to quote Dr. Perez, Rekawa competed for the Palme d'Or at the 1957 Cannes Film Festival and was very well received internationally.
And that was also the first ever Sinhala film you ever saw. Tell us about this meeting with Lester James Peries.
I feel a bit embarrassed to say it's the first Sinhala film because being Sinhalese, I should have seen Sinhala films. But one has to remember it was only 10 years of the Sinhala cinema from 7 to 57 or 56. And when I went to France and there was this big thing about a Sinhala film being screened, I was over the moon. So I went, I think, and ushered in the people because they were so keen to see the film. And then after the film, I thought, wow, this is something. If we can make this, what am I pondering around? I should start learning how to make films. I think that would have been the greatest inspiration. Later on, I came to know him because he was staying with the Mendeses themselves, and he advised me to go to London because I was to go to IDEC. I was bugged on going to IDEC, and IDEC was, at that time, they needed much more French. So Lester also said, you are wasting more money studying French for another year, why don't you go to England and study there? So that's when I changed my mind and I went and studied.
Coming from Avistavella, which was village at that time, how did you connect with the village in Reykjava?
I think I was, of course, I knew village life quite, because we lived not only in the village, we moved with the villagers, because my family came from a socialist background and we went for all these social activities, working amongst malaria patients and all that. I was a kid, but people like N.M. Pereira and all used to use our house as a stop. So I was very familiar. So when these people fell ill and the devil ceremonies and all that was not uncommon to me. So I was, I think I was enamored that people were real, they were not cardboard characters, and those people I could identify with. It was the biggest inspiration of my life.
For more reasons than one, I believe the Cinémathèque Française holds a very special place in your heart, Mrs. Peries.
It does, because I mean it is a place where when you think of a person like Lanka who refused even to give the list of the pictures he had because he loved it, and I think one minister I remember questioned him and he just put it in his mouth. He said, this is a list, and he just swallowed it down. You know, he was such a eccentric, but he was totally a devout person about restoring film, and we still owe whatever left of our films to that great man. So I guess Cinémathèque is symbolic of everything that cinema holds for us. And to me it was, of course I lived in the 90s as ambassador there, and every day I go to the balcony I could see Cinémathèque across.
Oh, lovely.
So it was a reminder for every morning of our heritage, you know, cinema heritage.
The Cinémathèque Française is a French non-profit film organization founded way back in 1936 and houses one of the largest archives of film documents and film-related objects in the world. Henri Langlois had acquired one of the largest collections in the world by the beginning of World War II. The Cinémathèque Française also operates the Musée de la Cinémathèque, formerly known as the Musée du Cinéma Henri Langlois, and is now located at Rue de Bercy in Paris. If my memory serves me right, when France marked the 100th anniversary of cinema, there were 100 films that were classified as the best in the world. And her husband's film, Nidhani, his seminal masterpiece, was classified among those 100 best films in the world to mark the centenary of world cinema. And that's a record.
France's Lumiere Brothers are credited as having given the world the moving image.
And many years later, Dr. and Mrs. Peries returned to Paris, one of their innumerable visits. And they were hosted, and they stayed in the Lumiere Brothers chateau in Lyon. And they actually slept in the Lumiere Brothers bed those 2 nights.
Tell us about that experience.
Actually, the origin, of course, was there was a retrospective of both Lester's and our films at the Cinémathèque. And the whole thing shifted to Lyon because there's another smaller Cinémathèque in Lyon, because the Lumiere brothers were very rich. They were chemical engineers, and they left this huge chateau to the government to restore films, to show films. So that tradition goes on, and we were hosted and asked to be, we had a choice, not a choice, but they invited us, and we were given this huge bedroom, almost as large as these 2 rooms, and with a huge 4-poster bed, you know, silk coverlets and all that. And when I went there, my heart stopped because I thought, how am I going to pass the night here? So I think there was a little ante-room for maybe for a maid or something like that. And I think both of us just crept into the ante-bed and just ruffled the main bed and pretended we slept on that. But
were there any visitations in the night?
In my dreams, I think so. I think I still dream about it sometimes.
The Lumiere brothers, Auguste and Louis, were French inventors and pioneer manufacturers of photographic equipment who devised an early motion picture camera and projector called the cinematograph. The word cinema is derived from this name. Their short film of 1895, La sortie des ouvriers de l'usine Lumière, workers leaving the Lumiere factory, is generally considered the first motion picture.
Completing her karmic twist with France, that 21-year-old Sumithra Gunawardena of 1956 has done the full cycle.
And returned to France in the 1990s as Sri Lankan ambassador to France.
Now, wasn't that your own Rekawa, your own line of destiny?
I think in a way it is a kind of line of destiny because so many things happen, not with other countries. One would have expected Britain, because I studied there and we had more British connection, but there was this anti-imperialist attitude of my family coming through at that time. But still, it is France. France adopted. It is like a pilgrimage which I have done so many times. I recall there was, I think we forgot that I spent 1.5 years as a scholar. After I got married, my husband let me go, leaving him here to study at the Conservatoire. Again, I think at that time too, I wanted to go to EDEC and there was the barricades and the EDEC was stopped. EDEC had been closed because of the student revolution in '68. So by 1969, it wasn't, so I had to go to some another conservatoire, which was very academic but interesting. And I think that is the thing that made me, in a way, again a destiny, because being away from Leicester and the industry, I think I wanted to go and direct my own films. That's a turning point in my life again. That also would have been France. So I think it is more than even a line of destiny. It's just that I was destined to be a part. I should have been born in France maybe, but
I will join you there.
still, anyway, I love France still and everything that goes with it. And I think cinema also has been, the French cinema has been an inspiration to me, because I think the gentleness, the visual poetry of the French cinema has appealed to me, and I think that is reflected, I hope, in some way in my work too. And so I guess through me, France, there is something of France in the work I have done, and that is the only tribute I could have given back to France.
And so with their deep and lasting relationship with France, Dr. and Mrs. Peries were very, very frequent guests on Bonsoir these past 35 years, and again, all over again, now on Rendezvous.
Thank you very much, Madame Peries, for sharing with us those wonderful experiences that you lived in France.
Merci beaucoup, bonne chance, bon courage, et Madame Peries, bonne santé.
It was nice, nostalgic going back all these years.
So thank you very much once again for being our guest.
Thank you. Really
Lovely
so much.
talking to you.
Au revoir.
À la prochaine.
Bibi duni